The forest was heavy with silence. The human traveler, Daniel, walked carefully between the tall alien trees. Their roots twisted like snakes, and the leaves gave off a strange blue glow in the dark. He had traveled far from the main colony, searching for a safe path back to his camp. But something in the air tonight felt wrong. The night was too quiet, too heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Then he heard it, a sound, weak, broken, and filled with fear. At first he thought it was an animal, but then he realized it was a voice. A young voice, a girl's voice. Daniel froze. The sound came again, sharper this time, a cry for help. His heart began to beat faster. He looked around, trying to see through the thick shadows between the glowing trees. "Hello?" he called, his voice steady but cautious. The answer was a soft whimper. And then footsteps. From the shadows, a figure stumbled forward. She was small, her body wrapped in torn alien cloth, her skin pale with strange patterns glowing faintly in the night. Her hair was tangled, her breathing ragged. She looked like she had been running for hours. Before Daniel could move, the girl collapsed at his feet. Her knees hit the dirt, and she grabbed his arm with surprising strength for someone so weak. Her wide golden eyes looked up at him, filled with terror. "Please, help me," she whispered. Her voice trembled, yet carried a desperate weight. "They will find me. They will take me back. If they do, I won't survive." Daniel knelt beside her. He could feel how cold her hands were, how much she was shaking. "Who will find you?" "What's happening?" he asked, keeping his tone calm. The girl shook her head, her breaths coming fast. "The ritual," she said, her voice breaking on the word. "They will give me to the fire, to the spirits. They say it is tradition, but it is only death." Her words struck him like a blade. A ritual, a sacrifice? Daniel didn't fully understand her culture, but her fear was real. Her body trembled. Her eyes filled with tears that caught the faint blue light of the forest. Suddenly the sound of drums carried through the trees, a deep, heavy beat that echoed like thunder. The girl's whole body stiffened. She clung to Daniel's arm tighter. "They are coming," she whispered. "The hunters. They want me back." Daniel's instincts told him to leave, to run, to avoid being pulled into something he did not understand. But another part of him, the part that could not ignore someone begging at his feet, kept him still. He looked into her eyes and saw no trick, no deception, only raw fear and the need to survive. He stood and pulled her up with him. "Come on," he said firmly. "We need to move." The girl's legs shook, but she obeyed. Together, they stumbled deeper into the forest, away from the echoing drums. Branches scratched against Daniel's arms. Roots almost tripped him, but he did not stop. The girl stayed close, her breath sharp, her eyes darting to every shadow. As they moved, Daniel tried to make sense of what she had said. A savage ritual, a fire, a death she had been chosen for. Why her? Why now? He had no answers, only the haunting weight of her words. Then, behind them, he saw flickers of light, torches, shadows moving, shapes of hunters spreading through the trees. The sound of drums grew louder, joined by chants that rattled through the night air. The girl gripped his hand so tightly it hurt. "If they take me," she said, her voice desperate and clear, "you will never see me again. Please, don't let them." Daniel's chest tightened. The choice was already made. He pulled her behind a large tree, pressing close to the rough bark as the torches passed. The hunters were near, their chants rising like a dark wave. The girl leaned close, whispering one last warning. "They will not stop until I am taken. Even if you fight them, they will come. And if you are caught with me, the ritual will not need one victim. It will take two." The human froze, his heart pounding as the reality sank in. He was no longer just a traveler in the forest. He was now a target in a savage ritual he barely understood, and the night had only just begun. The forest stretched endlessly, and the night felt alive with whispers. Daniel moved quickly, pulling the alien girl along, her weak legs barely keeping up. The drums behind them grew louder, steady as a heartbeat. Every beat reminded him of the hunters closing in. "Faster," Daniel whispered. Though his own chest burned with exhaustion, the girl's small frame stumbled, but she pushed forward. Fear was her strength now. She finally spoke, breathless. "My name is Lyra." Her voice cracked. "If they find me, they will drag me back to the village. The ritual begins before sunrise. No one ever escapes it." Daniel's grip tightened. Then we'll stay ahead of them. But Lyra shook her head. They know these woods. They are raised in them. You are not. We cannot keep running. Daniel glanced at her. Her face glowed faintly under the blue light of the strange plants, and her golden eyes burned with desperation. She was right. His human legs could not outrun hunters born in this place. But then what choice did they have? A sudden rustle came from the trees ahead. Daniel raised his arm, pulling Lyra behind him. From the darkness, a tall figure stepped out. For one breathless second, Daniel thought it was a hunter, but the figure did not carry a torch. Instead, it wore a mask of carved bone and leaned on a wooden staff. Lyra gasped. "Elder Karen," she whispered, her voice shaking. The masked figure tilted its head. "Child of the ritual," the voice rasped, deep and ancient. "Why do you run?" Daniel felt Lyra press against his back, trembling. "Because I don't want to die," she said in a broken whisper. The elder's mask caught the glow of the plants, its hollow eyes like pits of shadow. "The spirits demand blood," the elder said. "Your escape is betrayal. The hunters are close. They will spill not just your blood, but his as well." Daniel's hand curled into a fist. "She's not going back. I won't let her." The elder turned toward him slowly, as though truly seeing him for the first time. "Human," the elder hissed. "This is not your fight. Leave her and they will spare you. Stay, and you will face what she fears." The silence between them was heavy. Daniel's chest rose and fell with his breath, but he didn't move. "Then I'll face it," he said. For the first time, the elder's voice softened, almost like a sigh. Foolish, brave, or perhaps both. "But you cannot fight them here." The elder raised the staff and pointed deeper into the forest. "There is a path. A hidden way. It leads to the heart of the village. If you are bold enough to step inside, you may find answers. Or death." Lyra's grip on Daniel's sleeve tightened. "It's a trap," she whispered quickly. "The heart of the village is where the ritual begins." But Daniel's instincts burned inside him. He could not protect her by only running. He needed to understand what they were facing. "Show me the way," he demanded. The elder's mask dipped in a slow nod. Without another word, the figure melted back into the forest, moving with unnatural grace. Daniel and Lyra followed, every step bringing them closer to the unknown. The path grew narrow. The glow of the plants dimmed until the trees gave way to a clearing. And there it was, an alien village hidden beneath the shadow of giant roots, its homes carved into living wood. Torches lined the central square, and a massive stone altar stood at the center. Around it were symbols burned into the ground, circles, lines, and runes that pulsed faintly with crimson light. Lyra trembled. "This is it. This is where they bring the chosen." Daniel stared at the altar, his stomach twisting. The hunters were not just chasing her. They were bringing her back to this place, to this altar. He could almost feel the weight of the ritual pressing against his skin. Suddenly, distant cries filled the air. The hunters were closer now. Torches lit the far side of the clearing. Shadows moved. The elder stopped, turning to them once more. "The hunters come. Choose your ground. Hide, fight, or flee. But know this, human. Once you step into the village, you are no longer an outsider. The ritual will claim you both." Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at Lyra, then at the altar glowing faintly in the night. He knew one thing for certain. The fight was no longer about running. It was about surviving the heart of a savage tradition. The drums thundered again. The hunters had arrived, and the ritual was waiting. The hunters entered the clearing with steady steps, their torches held high, their chants filling the night. The sound was haunting, deep voices rising and falling like waves against stone. Daniel could feel it in his chest, shaking his bones. Lyra clung to his arm, her face pale in the torchlight. They had no time to run. The hunters were already circling them, closing the gap with slow, deliberate movements. Their eyes glowed faintly behind painted masks. In their hands were long spears tipped with black stone. Each step they took brought the circle tighter. Daniel's eyes scanned the clearing. The altar stood in the center, the strange crimson runes flickering faintly as if alive. Around it, piles of wood and oil-soaked cloth were stacked high. He realized with a chill what it meant. This was not just a place of sacrifice. It was a place of fire. Lyra's voice trembled. "This is the circle of fire. Once lit, no one escapes." One of the hunters stepped forward, his mask larger and heavier than the others, his spear carved with symbols. His voice carried above the chants. "The runaway returns. And with her, the outsider, who dares to defy the ritual. The hunters raised their spears and slammed them into the ground. Sparks burst and suddenly flames rose around the clearing. A wall of fire cut them off from the forest. Heat washed over Daniel's face, sweat dripping instantly down his neck. They were trapped. Daniel pulled Lyra close. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice firm. But inside his mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan, only his own will. The lead hunter lifted his spear, pointing it at Daniel. "The spirits are watching. Tonight 2 flames will burn instead of 1. The chanting grew louder. The fire roared higher. And then, as if alive, the runes on the altar pulsed with red light. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had seen strange alien technology before, but this felt older, darker, more primal. It was as if the ground itself demanded blood. Lyra suddenly cried out, "No, please!" She stepped in front of Daniel, raising her hands. "Take me, but spare him. He does not belong to this ritual." The hunters only laughed. Their deep voices mocked her. "The spirits decide. Not you." Daniel grabbed her shoulder and pulled her back. His voice was sharp. "Don't you dare give yourself up. I'm not letting them take you." Her golden eyes met his, filled with fear and hopelessness. "You don't understand. No one has ever fought them. No one has ever survived once chosen." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then maybe tonight is the first time." The circle of hunters began to close in. Their spears glinted in the firelight. Daniel's muscles tensed, his every nerve alive with adrenaline. He had faced battles before, but never like this. Here he was not just a soldier, he was a symbol of defiance against something ancient and savage. The elder Karen suddenly appeared near the altar, his bone mask glowing faintly in the firelight. His voice boomed above the flames. "Outsider, do you wish to take her place? Do you dare stand against the spirits themselves?" Daniel's fists clenched. His throat felt dry, but his answer came without hesitation. "I'll stand." A silence fell, heavy and sharp. Even the hunters paused, their chants dying in their throats. The elder tilted his head, the mask unreadable. Then slowly he raised his staff toward the altar. "Then the ritual changes," Karen said. "The outsider will face the trial of flame. If he survives, both may walk free. If he falls, both will burn." Lyra gasped, her body shaking. "Daniel, no, this is worse than death. No human has ever—" He cut her off, his voice steady. "It doesn't matter. I won't stand by while they destroy you." The hunters struck their spears into the ground once more. Sparks burst upward, and the circle of fire opened on one side. The path led directly to the altar. Karen's voice thundered, echoing against the burning walls. "Step into the circle, human. The spirits will test you." Daniel's heart pounded, but his steps did not falter. He walked forward, each pace heavy, the flames reflecting in his eyes. Behind him, Lyra cried his name, but he did not look back. He climbed the steps of the altar, the heat pressing against his skin, the runes glowing brighter with every step. At the top, he stood alone, the fire circling him, the hunters watching like shadows, the elder raising his staff. The night was no longer silent. It was alive with fire, chants, and the weight of a ritual that demanded blood. And Daniel knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was trapped in a trial that could end not just his life, but both of theirs. The circle of fire had begun. The fire crackled around the altar, tall and merciless, casting wild shadows across the hunters' masks. Daniel stood at the top of the stone platform, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his skin. The heat was unbearable, yet the runes beneath his boots glowed even hotter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra remained at the edge of the circle, her golden eyes locked on him. She wanted to scream, to run to him, but the hunters held their spears in a tight wall, blocking her way. Her hands shook, her lips moving silently as if praying to gods she no longer believed in. The elder Karen raised his staff high. The chant stopped. A sudden silence pressed down like a heavy cloak. Then the elder's voice carried through the night. "The trial of flame begins. The outsider will face the spirit's judgment. If he endures, he may claim the girl's freedom. If he fails, both will be swallowed by the fire." The hunters slammed their spears into the ground. Sparks shot upward, and the altar shook beneath Daniel's feet. From the glowing runes, shapes began to rise, flames twisting into forms, burning figures that looked like warriors made of fire itself. Their eyes glowed white, their bodies blazing, their movements slow but steady. Daniel's breath caught. They were not real men, but they looked alive. They carried weapons of fire, swords that hissed as they moved. One stepped forward, its burning blade raised. Daniel had nothing in his hands. No sword, no shield, only his fists. The first strike came fast. The flaming sword slashed through the air, and Daniel barely jumped back in time. Heat seared his arm, leaving his skin red though the blade did not touch him directly. He gritted his teeth, his instincts screaming at him, fight or die. He swung with his fist, striking the fire warrior in the chest. His knuckles burned, the heat biting deep, but the figure staggered back for a moment before reforming. The crowd of hunters roared in approval, their voices echoing like thunder. Another came at him. Then another. Soon 3 burning warriors surrounded him, circling with steady steps. Sweat poured down his face, his body aching from the heat. From the edge, Lyra cried out, "Daniel, the runes! Use the runes!" Her words cut through the noise. Daniel looked down at the glowing symbols beneath his feet. They pulsed in rhythm with the warrior's movements. His eyes narrowed. Could they be connected? As the next strike came, Daniel moved differently. Instead of dodging, he stepped directly onto one of the brightest runes. The ground pulsed, and the flame warrior froze for an instant, its body flickering like a candle in wind. Daniel didn't waste time. He grabbed a fallen branch from the altar's edge, its tip already burning. With a roar, he swung it like a club, smashing through the frozen flame warrior. The fiery figure burst apart, scattering sparks into the night. The hunters gasped, their chants breaking for the first time. The elder's masked head tilted, watching closely. Daniel's chest heaved, his arms trembling, but he felt a spark of hope. He understood now. This trial wasn't just about strength. It was about learning, adapting, surviving. But the spirits did not make it easy. The remaining warriors roared, their flames growing brighter. 2 charged him at once, their burning swords slicing the air. Daniel rolled across the altar, pain shooting through his shoulder as he landed. He scrambled back onto his feet, eyes searching for another rune. He saw it, a faint blue one glowing beneath the red. Different. He stomped hard, and this time a burst of cold air shot upward, clashing with the fire. One warrior flickered, shrinking slightly. Daniel swung again with his burning branch smashing through it. The crowd roared, half in anger, half in awe, but the last warrior remained, its fire brighter than the others. It raised its sword high, flames twisting into a blade longer than Daniel's height. Daniel's body shook. He had almost no strength left, his lungs screaming for air. The fire's heat felt like it would melt him alive. Yet he stood tall, his eyes locked on the final warrior. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "You can do it! Don't give up!" The warrior charged. Daniel braced himself, his feet planted on the runes, his burning branch in his hands. Every muscle in his body screamed as he roared back, charging into the fire. The altar exploded in light as man and flame collided. The crowd's voices rose, a storm of chants and cries, while Lyra's scream pierced through it all. And then, the light swallowed everything. When the blinding light faded, the clearing was silent. The hunters stood frozen, their torches dimming as if even fire itself had been stunned. The circle of fire was scattered with ashes, glowing embers dancing in the air. At the center of the altar, Daniel lay on one knee, his chest heaving, his skin blackened with soot. His clothes were torn, his arms covered with burns, but he was alive. Around him, no flame warriors remained. Only the ashes of what once burned bright. Lyra gasped. Tears filled her eyes, and she tried to push past the hunters. "He lives! He survived!" she cried, her voice breaking with both relief and fear. The hunters muttered among themselves, their chants broken, their order unsettled. None of them had expected the outsider to last, let alone win. Their painted masks turned toward Karen, waiting for the elder's judgment. Karen stepped forward, his bone mask glowing faintly in the fading firelight. He looked at Daniel, who slowly forced himself to his feet despite the pain in his body. Daniel's legs trembled, but his eyes burned with defiance. The elder raised his staff. "The outsider has done what no one else dared. He has faced the spirits and stood against their fire." The voice was heavy, almost reluctant. "By the law of the ritual, he has won." Lyra's face lit with hope. She reached out her trembling hand. "Then we are free?" But Karen's head turned toward her, the hollow mask unmoving. "Not yet. The fire was only the first trial. To truly defy the spirits, he must walk the path of blood. Only then will freedom be earned. Daniel's heart sank. His body was already broken, his lungs burning, yet he understood this was not finished. The elder would not let them go so easily. The hunters roared, their chants rising again, stronger this time. They struck their spears against the ground, sending sparks upward. The fire circle flared alive once more, though weaker than before. Daniel clenched his fists. "You said if I survived we could walk free." The elder's voice was calm but firm. "The spirits demand more. To take her from their claim is to challenge tradition itself. Do you have the strength to face what comes next?" Daniel glanced at Lyra. She shook her head desperately, her tears streaking down her face. "Please, no more. You've already given everything. They'll kill you if you continue." He looked at her and gave a faint smile, though his lips were cracked with pain. "I told you I wouldn't let them take you." "I meant it." The elder lowered his staff. The ground beneath the altar shifted. Stones moved, groaning as if alive, and a hidden passage opened below. From the darkness a cold wind rose, carrying the smell of iron and death. Karen's voice echoed. "The path of blood awaits. If you step inside, the spirits will test you one final time. If you fall, both of you belong to the fire forever." The hunters cheered, their voices like thunder. Some beat drums, others raised their spears in wild triumph. The fire roared higher, lighting the hidden passage with its glow. Daniel's muscles screamed in protest, but he moved. One step forward, then another. He stood at the edge of the passage, staring into the darkness. Lyra cried out, her voice sharp and desperate. "Daniel, don't go! No one ever comes back from there." He turned his head just enough to meet her eyes. "Then tonight someone will." And without another word he descended into the shadows. The passage swallowed him, the stone grinding shut behind. The hunters roared with savage joy, their drums shaking the earth. Lyra fell to her knees, her hands covering her face. She whispered his name over and over, as if hoping her voice could reach him in the dark. In the depths below, Daniel's footsteps echoed against cold stone. The air was heavy, damp, and filled with whispers that did not belong to the living. He tightened his fists, his heart steady despite the fear pressing in. The trial of flame was over, but the path of blood had just begun. The stone door closed behind him with a grinding sound, sealing Daniel in complete darkness. The air was damp and heavy, thick with the smell of iron. His footsteps echoed against the cold floor as he moved forward slowly, one hand brushing the wall. He could no longer hear the hunter's chants or Lyra's desperate cries, only silence and the faint drip of water somewhere deep inside. Daniel's chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to turn back, but there was no way out. He had chosen this path and he would see it through. After a few steps, a faint red glow appeared ahead. He followed it, the tunnel twisting like the inside of a beast. Soon he entered a cavern lit by torches that burned with crimson flames. Strange carvings covered the walls, figures of warriors, beasts, and rivers of blood painted in thick strokes. At the center of the chamber stood a pool. Its surface shimmered dark and red, as if it were filled not with water but with blood itself. Across the pool, a stone bridge stretched toward another chamber. Daniel stepped closer, his muscles tense. Then, without warning, the pool rippled. From its surface, something rose. The first shape was a beast, a monstrous figure with the head of a wolf and the body of a man, its eyes glowing like molten gold. Blood dripped from its claws as it stepped onto the stone floor. Another shape followed, this time a warrior armored in bone, his sword jagged and dripping red. Then another. And another. Daniel's throat tightened. He was not facing fire this time. He was facing blood. The creatures circled him, their bodies dripping, their eyes fixed on him as if he were prey. His heart pounded. He had no weapon, only his will and his hands. The wolf-headed beast lunged first. Daniel barely dodged, rolling across the stone floor. Its claws scraped sparks as they struck the ground where he had stood. He scrambled up, grabbing a broken shard of bone from the floor. It was crude, but it was something. The warrior advanced next, swinging his jagged sword. Daniel raised the shard to block, the impact sending pain shooting up his arm. Sparks of blood-like liquid splashed across his face. He pushed forward, ramming his shoulder into the warrior and sending it staggering back. But the others closed in. Daniel's lungs burned, his body aching, but he kept moving, striking, dodging, refusing to fall. Every time his strength faltered, He thought of Lyra, alone above, waiting, praying. He thought of her golden eyes filled with fear and hope. That thought fueled him. The cavern seemed alive, the walls pulsing with red light. The pool boiled, sending more ripples across its surface. It was as if the blood itself wanted to drown him. Daniel spotted something on the far side of the bridge, an altar, glowing faintly blue, different from everything else in this crimson chamber. His instincts told him it was the key. If he could reach it, maybe the trial would end, but the creatures blocked his path. The wolf beast lunged again. This time Daniel didn't dodge. He stepped forward, driving the bone shard deep into its throat. The beast howled, thrashing, its body dissolving into a spray of blood that soaked the stones. The warrior came next, raising its sword high. Daniel ducked under the strike and drove his fist into its chest with all his weight. The bone armor cracked, and the warrior shattered into pieces that melted into the ground. Panting, Daniel staggered toward the bridge. The last two creatures closed in behind him, their growls echoing through the cavern. He ran, his feet pounding the stones, his body trembling from exhaustion. The bridge shook as he crossed, the pool bubbling violently below. One clawed hand reached for his leg, but Daniel kicked it off, forcing himself forward until he reached the glowing altar. He slammed his hands down on its surface. The altar pulsed with bright blue light, flooding the cavern. The creatures screamed, their bodies bursting into mist. The pool boiled one last time before falling silent. Daniel collapsed to his knees, gasping, his body shaking with exhaustion. The blue glow faded, leaving the chamber quiet once more. A new doorway opened on the far wall, stone grinding aside. A cold wind blew through, carrying whispers that sounded almost like voices. Daniel forced himself to stand. His body was broken, his strength nearly gone, but he pushed forward into the darkness. Above in the village, the hunters waited, their drums silent now. Lyra stared at the altar, her heart heavy, her hands clenched tight. She did not know if he was still alive, but deep below, Daniel walked into the next trial, his resolve burning brighter than his pain. The path of blood was not finished. It had only just revealed its true face. Daniel stepped through the stone doorway, his body weak but his spirit burning. The tunnel opened into a vast underground hall, wider than any chamber he had seen. The ceiling was lost in shadows, and at the center stood a massive throne carved from black stone. On the throne sat a figure cloaked in darkness. Its face was hidden by a mask shaped like a skull, and its hands were long and sharp like blades. Around the throne, chains dangled from the ceiling, some broken, some holding skeletons that swayed gently in the cold air. Daniel's breath caught. He knew without words, this was the final test. The spirit of the ritual itself. The figure rose, its voice like thunder rolling across stone. Outsider, you defied fire. You spilled blood, but to take the girl, you must give something in return. Nothing leaves this place without a price. Daniel's fists clenched, though his arms shook with exhaustion. Name it. The figure spread its arms and the chains rattled like screams. Life for life. Hers for yours. Step into the chains and she walks free. Refuse and both of you burn. Daniel's heart pounded. He could almost see Lyra above, her golden eyes watching, waiting. He could almost hear her voice begging him not to give in. Yet he knew this choice was real. The spirit demanded his life, but then something changed. The runes across the floor pulsed faintly, glowing not red this time, but blue. They spread outward from Daniel's feet, reaching toward the throne. The spirit hissed, stepping back as the light grew. Daniel understood. This trial wasn't about sacrifice. It was about resolve. Every test had tried to break him, to make him surrender, to bow to fear. But the truth was simpler. If he stood unbroken, if he refused to bend, then the ritual would shatter. He straightened, his voice steady, though his throat burned. No, I won't give you my life. I won't give hers either. We don't belong to you. We never did. The spirit roared, the hall shaking, chains whipping through the air. It lunged from the throne, its blade-like arms striking with fury. Daniel braced himself, raising his fists. He had nothing but his will, nothing but the fire inside. The chains wrapped around him, burning his skin, pulling him toward the throne. Pain tore through his body, but he refused to fall. He roared back, straining against the chains, every muscle screaming. The blue runes blazed brighter, spreading across the hall. The chains cracked, breaking one by one. The spirit howled, its mask splintering, light pouring from the cracks. Daniel pushed forward step by step until he stood before the spirit. With one last cry, he drove his fist into its chest. The mask shattered, the figure bursting into shards of shadow and light. The hall exploded with silence. Daniel collapsed to the floor, his body trembling, his vision fading. But as the shadows cleared, the chains fell away. The throne crumbled into dust. The path behind him opened, light spilling in. Above in the village, the altar blazed with blue light. The hunters shielded their eyes, their chants dying in their throats. Lyra gasped as the stone split open, and Daniel emerged, broken but alive. The elder Karen stepped forward, his bone mask shaking in the glow. "Impossible," he whispered. "The ritual. Broken?" Daniel staggered, every step heavy. Lyra rushed to him, catching him before he fell. Tears streamed down her face as she held him close. "You came back. You came back to me." The hunters dropped their spears, fear replacing their pride. Without the ritual, their power meant nothing. Some fled into the forest, others fell to their knees in silence. The drums stopped. The fire dimmed. Daniel lifted his head, his voice hoarse but strong. "It's over. She's free." Karen bowed his head slowly, lowering his staff. "The spirits have spoken. The outsider has broken the chain. The girl is no longer bound." The night air filled with silence. The fire's glow faded into soft embers, and the clearing felt strangely calm. Daniel leaned against Lyra, his body weak, but his heart steady. She looked at him with awe and gratitude, her golden eyes shining. "You gave everything," she whispered. "Not for yourself, but for me." He gave her a tired smile. "That's what it means to fight for someone." And as dawn began to break beyond the forest, the drums of death were gone, replaced by the quiet promise of freedom. The savage ritual was broken, and for the first time hope burned brighter than fire.